Oh, how the turntables have. Hi, I'm Scott.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And this is Church is Lame, the podcast where we try to fix the church by talking about the stupid things churches do that break the entire body.
So, I don't really listen to anything on record anymore. Barely even use a CD player, to be honest. So, what's all this about turntables?
Oh man, nothing's like vinyl, man. Pass the bong.
Don't get me started on this whole vinyl argument, because I have passionate things to say.
So there are things that seem incredibly circular in a bad way in the world of the church. I remember not too long ago when I was a young man and this Marshall Mathers came on the scene with I'm the Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady, or something like that, right? And the parents got so mad. This rap stuff, it's part of the problem. It's why our kids are violent. It's why our kids aren't achieving anymore. It's this rap stuff. And now the white people are rapping. Somebody has to make it stop.
And you're saying this as if that dates us, but Beastie Boys, man.
Beastie Boys, yes.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Okay, but yeah, so Beastie Boys, I think they've gotten their due over time. You hear sabotage everywhere, but if you listen to the Beast, there's so much good stuff in the Beastie Boy catalog, and I think there's a good case to be made for whether you like it or not. The Beastie Boys opened the door for modern hip hop as we know it.
I'll buy that.
Okay, but anyway, Eminem.
Yeah,
brilliant rapper. Anybody's top 20 list of greatest rappers of all time will include Eminem. There's a lot of people who don't like that because he is a white boy, but there are a lot of incredibly successful black rappers who say it's not up for debate. He is one of the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So anyway, he's appeared on a song that is very clearly putting his spirituality on his sleeve, right? And this is what he does for a living, is he puts his thoughts out there. Sometimes his thoughts are incredibly interesting and beautiful, and sometimes his thoughts are incredibly dark and scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't really edit them. He just puts them out there, and he says, this is me at the moment. These are the things I'm thinking and feeling. Sometimes I'm feeling charged and energetic, and other times I'm feeling near suicidal. And this is my art, that I put these words to music, and I share them with you, right?
Yeah.
So in this latest project he's done, he's put his faith out there in a very positive way. And of course, what does the church do? The church just kind of, in a dramatic way, wraps their arms around him like, oh, he was always one of us. It's no, that's not the lesson here. The lesson is that you can enjoy this music and you can you can get something from it and you can give something to others through it. Why do we feel this need to take anybody who even minimally tangentially mentions the name of Jesus and then kind of ascribe to him values that they may or may not have? I don't know his inner life. I don't know if he's a devout Christian. Doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter what I think of him. But all we know is that this song is representative of a moment, and now we want to take it and make that all of who he is. And that's probably not a good place to be.
Right. So he hasn't come out on the record and say he's a Christian. He's just saying here's a song I did about this aspect of myself.
Yeah. And I think from the lyrics, it's fair to say that at some level he's a Christian. Whether it's just at that one level of have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? As long as you can say yes to that question, then I'll go with it,
Yeah, but we talked a little bit ago, I forget how many episodes it was, right, about Christian celebrity being the thing that it is, right?
Yeah.
And it seems if it's not a Christian who is a celebrity doing a thing, it's some celebrity that Christians can co-op into part of this evangelical narrative.
Yeah.
Like Eminem, it's of course, no Christian magazine cared about Max Cavalera when he became a Christian. Max Cavalera being the lead singer of Sepultura. If you're not aware who Sepultura is, that's what YouTube is for.
Right.
And it's Alice Cooper became a Christian, and you didn't hear a lot about it. It was kind of oh, here's his moment, and that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's like it seems like evangelicals are kind of desperate to grab for anything, right?
Yeah.
That like makes it seem like we're cool and we're hip. At least, I mean, maybe I'm being cynical about that, but that's what it feels like. Because there's no like prolonged, I mean, with maybe the exception of Kanye, right? Like who keeps
Mm-hmm.
blowing up his own headlines. It's like there's no
Yeah.
continued dialogue around those individuals. It's just like, oh, like, Brian Welch became a Christian. Yay. And then let's just forget he ever existed.
Yeah. Like we call it the work-life balance, right? Trying to
Mm-hmm.
get that balance right of you work enough and you not work enough so that you never feel like you just want to stop living, right? And what happens in this kind of celebrity thing is we go chasing after that celebrity, like you said, to co-opt them, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and so we have like 3 months of this incredible euphoria of look, he's one of ours, and the church has made headlines, and Eminem is rapping about Jesus. Like, how awesome are things? But eventually that song is going to come off the charts, and eventually Eminem's going to move on to other topics he's interested. And so now you got
Mm-hmm.
to go looking for a new high, right? And that's the problem. To me, that's kind of how this breaks. Is we're kind of training the church to be drug addicts, going for that dopamine hit
Right.
instead of staying in an abiding relationship with Jesus. We're going for all these other dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just in case, I think anybody that would be listening to this, right, is thinking, that like you or I are being harsh
yeah,
about this.
yeah,
I think back to when I was in high school and I would hear people say the most stupid things along these lines. It's like, I remember somebody once saying, well, like, Trent Reznor said, in this song, like, you bring me closer to God, that means he's a Christian. It's like, what
no,
was the chorus of that song?
that is not what that means.
If you're not a Nine Inch Nails fan, I'm referring to the song Closer.
Yeah,
Go read the lyrics, specifically the chorus, and you'll understand why somebody like latching onto this as like some sort of like, I don't know, embrace of Christianity.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
there's something in there, like, and I guess maybe it's like if you like, whatever your favorite band is,
yeah.
if it's the Beatles or Metallica or Pat Boone, whoever it is. I may actually think Pat Boone was a Christian, but
Yes,
it's
definitely, for sure.
so never
Yeah.
mind that last one. But let's
Hmm.
like the things you really, really like that
Yeah.
like you want them to be blessed. Blessed.
Yeah.
You want them to be blessed.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to look out for those things and be like, oh, see, and maybe not be as critical as we should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Christians in particular, people in general, Christians in particular, have a problem with holding two truths in their mind at the same time if they are two truths that rub up against each other, you
Mhm.
know? So the idea that the church has is that music that is explicitly Christian is therefore intrinsically good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we have Eminem then who's rapping about wanting to do harm from himself, right? And so there's this chasm that we can't jump across to say that 5 minutes of authenticity he had, even though it's dark, is still intrinsically good. But
Mhm.
now that he's talking about Jesus, now we can get there. Now we can kind of lasso in his entire body of work and say, see, it was all good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that would be a mistake. It's like
Yeah.
if I can't like take Alice Cooper's work prior to him becoming a Christian and say, oh well, I'm just gonna lionize this right now, or I'm gonna hagiify it. That'd be the
Mhm.
I guess the word I'm looking for, right? It's like I'm not gonna like sanctify and be like, yeah, feed my Frankenstein or poison.
Mhm.
Don't somehow become better. That he's a Christian now, or school's out for summer. Like everybody knows that song.
Right.
Right. It's like it doesn't make that a Christian song because he's now a Christian.
Right.
And if Eminem does come out as being a Christian, yeah, freaking great.
Yeah.
I don't want us to come across right like that we're like saying that this is not a good thing.
Yeah. No, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. I think we should move on.
Okay, what are we moving on to?
Okay, so
Should
let's
I get the headbanging board ready?
Yes, you should most definitely get the headbanging board ready. Now,
Ugh.
I know that I said it in a few episodes ago that one of my favorite things is to circle around on ongoing stories to kind of close the loop.
Mm-hmm.
But the next story I'm a little bit horrified by.
Okay.
So you'll remember that we talked about Bishop Lamar Whitehead, who went to a church service and between him and his wife had $400,000 worth of jewelry stolen from them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the good bishop might be experiencing a little bit of PTSD because in a recent video that's popped up, his sermon was not going so well. And you could kind of hear during the sermon that he was getting less and less like hallelujahs and amen responses from the congregation.
Hmm.
And then he took exception to somebody trying to record the service on their phone. He stopped the service. He brought the woman down, literally grabs her by the throat in a semi-chokehold. I don't think he meant to choke her, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And literally, physically, forcibly walks her off screen and presumably out of the out of the sanctuary.
You know, just like Jesus did.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's hard for me. Like, I want to say that, you know, sarcastically, but it's like, dude, that is so obviously and clearly an unchristian way to behave. Like, duh. Like, I feel like after that happened, the congregation should have risen up as one and just driven him out of the church, like Jesus cleansing the temple.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's so many ways this went wrong. For sure. Like, I wish the video doesn't extend that far to the end of the service. I wish it did, but the video stops at the point where he grabs her by the neck for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's just unbelievably crazy. And like you said, all the different ways, like the inaction of the congregation is ridiculous. His actions are patently ridiculous, you know. So yeah. Listen, if you're a pastor, do not choke people during the service. Okay?
Unless, of course, the service is about how to choke people.
I guess. Oh, okay.
I mean, I can't think of any legitimate purpose for that being your sermon topic.
Yeah.
But benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. 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 This guy just break your brain. This guy just needs to go on a sabbatical. 6 months out of off the cameras, out of the limelight, and you know, he should pull a Matt Chandler.
Yeah, just prayer, fasting, the whole nine.
Yeah, and by the way, the Matt Chandler story is not going away either. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it tonight. But like the YouTubers are, and I think they're rightly saying, like, you know, this whole thing feels very carefully constructed. What are we missing? So it's kind of interesting, ongoing conversation happening there. But let's move on. Let's keep moving on here. Okay, Christian Post. Founder of Grace College, their music department was a serial predator.
That's not what you want.
That is definitely not what you want. And just so you know, this is not a recent thing. This dude died in 2015 at the age of 88, and it's estimated that he had somewhere between 100 and 200 victims by the time he died. And so this was not just something that happened like in the prime of his life. Like he was abusing kids well into the late stage of his life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big secret. I mean, he got arrested, but the charges didn't stick and it got swept under the rug. Why do we try to keep these things secret? I just don't understand. Like, why does new information keep coming to light? Why isn't all of this already out and in the open and having been talked about and put to rest? Like, why are we still finding out new stuff?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't want to litigate it here because we've covered it on a previous episode with a lot more grace and detail than we can give here. But yeah, like, just like it boggles the mind that this keeps happening.
Yeah.
You know, and I should not be surprised, right? Neither should you. Like, we're seeing the headlines. Like, it shouldn't surprise us, but it's like it somehow manages to keep shocking me.
Right.
And maybe it's because we're not dead inside.
Yeah. Do not churches like how this breaks the church is fairly obvious, right? Do not let your leaders abuse kids. And when you find out they're abusing kids, act immediately, act with commitment, act with integrity, and deal with it. Deal with your crap. I don't know how else to say it more plainly.
Yeah, mama, don't let your children grow up to be predatory abusers.
Yeah, and okay, my last headline. I hate that we have to talk about politics, but whether we like it or not, Christianity in America in 2022 is closely tied to politics, whether we like it or not.
Unfortunately.
So Al Mohler, evangelicals who don't vote Republican are unfaithful. They're not just bad people. They're not just bad citizens. They are unfaithful Christians.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
It's like Al Mohler is a man whose time has come and gone. In my opinion, he is part of the problem. Especially when we see numerous evangelicals in his same denomination, the Southern Baptist denomination, like coming out and being like, "Look, we've got to get over this stuff."
Yeah,
like he's a president of a school. Like he should be at the forefront of, hey, we need to get over this instead of contributing to the problem.
Yeah. I mean, you cannot be a servant of two masters, right?
No.
You cannot be a servant of two masters. So if your master is Republican politics, then your master can't be Jesus. It's just that simple. Your master can't be money, and your master also be Jesus. Your master can't be the approval of others and also be Jesus. Either you follow Jesus or you're following something else. And I know that's binary, but that's something we all need to look at and guard our hearts against every day. Like in my own life, am I following Jesus, or did I take my eyes off the ball and really what I want is to win an argument with my wife? Instead of having humility and compassion and some sympathy and empathy, am I really following Jesus, or did I just take a job because it pays a little bit more than another job? So this is not something I say with a disapproving finger to somebody else. This is something that I look in the mirror and I say to myself on a fairly regular basis, like doing that gut check of like, what are my motives for the life I'm living? Am I really following Jesus or not?
Yeah, I was trying to look up the verse and I couldn't get my computer to work. Like it was just like, no, I'm not using the keyboard right now. You're recording. But it was like Jesus was saying, like he was speaking specifically about wealth, but the principle applies elsewhere. It's like you will either love one and hate the other, or you will serve one and despise the other.
Yeah.
And in that case, you should understand it's like you will work toward the benefit of the one and you'll work toward the failure of the other.
Yeah.
And like that's an important lesson in the day and age in which we have so many things vying for our attention.
Yeah. I like in the church world, if you're not like somebody who goes to church and has heard a lot of sermons, the universal sermon is always the prodigal son, right? That's the lesson that you can apply to every situation. But one of my favorite verses that I think is always universally applicable is render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, render unto God what belongs to God. Right? Because it's kind of like this whole concept in a nutshell. Everything belongs to God. So when we get tunnel visioned about this thing over here or that thing over there, abortion, LGBTQ issues, when we get tunnel visioned about these things, we are not putting all of these things in God's hands. All these things belong to God. The gay people belong to God. The pro-choice people, they belong to God too. They are all part of God's creation. And so
I know this.
Well, yeah, you and I know that, and you and I are the only ones that are right in this conversation ever.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, come on, man. Back me up. I'm always right. Come on.
Okay, fine. We are the arbiters of all that is knowledge.
All that is right. Population, us.
I think I just pooped a little.
Nice.
Yeah.
By the way, if you've never seen the movie Iron Giant, you need to see the movie Iron Giant. One of the best animated movies ever.
Welcome I legitimately have never seen it.
Okay, well, you need to walk away from the mic right now and go watch it. Hogarth, which is our main character, our main young man. Welcome to Coolsville. Population, us.
Is that a Disney flick?
No, but the director would go on to be one of the monumental powerhouse directors of many Disney Pixar films.
Okay. Well,
Okay?
hey, I'll see if I can find it on streaming.
So if you get nothing else from this whole episode, Iron Giant.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Moving right along. Stupid is as stupid reports.
Oh, how do you keep finding these?
I tell you what. So listen, I understand if you're a news outlet, you gotta put content out, right? That's how you pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I just feel like the quality of the headlines could be better and the quality of the stories could be better. Like, it's not like you have untalented writers. They're there. They love what they do. Give them something good to write about. And sometimes these guys are just given the worst assignments. And so here's a couple of examples of these crappy assignments. Christian headlines. Most Americans believe worshiping alone or with family is a valid replacement for attending church on Sunday. It's like, A, that's not true. And B, if you're going to write this article anyway, at least get it right. Like, it's not that people think that worshiping alone or family is a valid replacement for church. It's that in the COVID age, when walking into a big room filled with people spreading germs without their masks, the cost benefit of walking into a church doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
Yeah, like, and just to make this like really apropos, right? I at the job that I have that actually pays me.
Yeah. Unlike this one.
Right.
Hey, I pay you in good times.
Yeah, you really do. But like I get this call from some rando on the street that like doesn't attend the church and who's asking about our Bible study. And then she gets super offended and bothered that the church is still doing the Bible study on Zoom and isn't doing it in person, because the church she goes to is doing everything in person, like full bore. And there's a part of me that's like, then why are you calling us about our Bible study if you go to a church with a Bible study already? But then she like basically starts haranguing. I mean, like, I want to say she starts haranguing me. She wasn't that rude. I ended up hanging up on her anyway.
Yeah.
Because I just wasn't going to have it. But,
Yeah.
and it's just like basically saying like, well, like you're not being faithful enough if you just don't go to church and blah blah blah. It's like you understand what a disease is, right? And what contagion is, what contagious means. It's like this woman had just no concept that protecting each other against the spread of a virus that could kill the most vulnerable of us is like a good thing. It's like the Pharisees who wanted to say, oh, well, we do these things because we're being faithful. It's like, well, no, your observance isn't faithful. Your observance is the sin.
Yeah.
Because what you're observing isn't what God commanded, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. The other part of this is, are you people not reading your Bibles? Because if I read my Bible right, the early Christian church was a collection of people who mostly met in houses, so there's that.
Yeah.
So,
like once they were driven from the synagogues, they would meet in homes.
Hello. Okay. So enough beating that horse. So I think I've said on this show multiple times, facts and truth are two different things. And you
Just
can play
a little bit.
You can play with numbers to mean whatever you want it to mean. Here's an interesting headline that came up this week. Over 55,000 abortions happen at 15 weeks or later each year, according to a study. Seems perfectly innocuous, right? It's a simple number. 55,000 abortions. Yeah. 15 weeks is another simple number, easy to wrap your mind around, right? One of the things we like to say in church a lot, and I think one of the things that you and I say a lot when it comes to people misinterpreting scripture, is it's content out of context, right? We all do it. It's kind of our way of being able to make quick decisions in life, right? Like we have this Bible verse, we have these things that we know, and we can just kind of say, well, this is the right path for me because I know this verse or whatever, right?
Right.
But now let me recontextualize this story. Over 55,000 abortions happen after 40 weeks. We just call it murder, right? Because, but it's the same thing, right? It's killing a baby. You're just doing it after they were born. And that number happens to be the number of people who are killed or wounded in mass shootings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really the number that's horrifying Christians, and it's not really the number of weeks that's horrifying Christians. Really, the only thing this story does is, once again, to villainize pro-choice people. That's all this
Right.
story's about, you
Yeah.
know?
Because like far more people die in this country every year from other causes, many of which, like specifically preventable diseases.
Yeah.
Like more people die from preventable causes than from this. And we don't hear the constant onslaught of articles raging about it.
Right. So if you, ChristianHeadlines.com, want to write about the sanctity of all life, by all means write about it. But then write about the sanctity of all life. Like, then you've got to talk about the immorality of sending our young men and women off to war to die, right? You've got to talk about the way we still inhumanely treat indigenous Americans in this country. You know, then you still have to talk about interning Asians in this country, about slavery in this country. Like, if we're going to talk about the sanctity of all life, then let's talk about the sanctity of all life. And if we're not going to talk about it, then for the love of God, shut your trap, is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, and I don't like. Can you bring up, you know, like imprisoning Asians, which I don't know if that was like a reference to World War II or not, but it's
Yeah.
like I'm assuming it was, and it's
Yeah.
like I feel like that is not like a wild example for you to bring up, because I feel like a lot of people today still want to defend things that our country did in the past,
Sure.
and so like we need a constant ethic here. You can't just sit there and say like, well, you know, that made sense at the time, but did it?
No, of course it
it's like,
didn't.
it made sense because you were afraid. And what does Paul say? Perfect love casts out fear. So you weren't loving people the way you were supposed to, and then you did a horrible thing and treated people like garbage.
Right.
So it's like I feel like those things are just as relevant now as they were historically then.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, you're exactly right. If all life is sacred, then the governor of Florida can't take immigrants who are legally seeking asylum in Texas and put them on a plane to Maryland, you know?
Yeah, like that whole thing is just disgusting and horrible. And I'm sure that DeSantis like walked into church the day after he did that, feeling all justified and righteous.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk about the political part of it. I just want to talk about the sanctity of life part about it. These are human beings with brains and hearts and spirits given to them by God. And so we need to treat them with the dignity and the sacredness of God's creation. And people who claim to be Christ followers did the opposite. They treated them as mindless garbage that could be wrapped up and transported and thrown away like any other piece of garbage, right? So Christian Headlines, if you want to talk about the sanctity of all life, I'm all for it. You just have to do it consistently.
Right.
And that's all I'm trying to say.
That'll preach.
End of rant. Moving right along. Disaffiliation Watch. I was kind of blown away by this headline.
Yeah. I saw this headline and it was like, not the one I saw coming right now.
But
hey.
it feeds into my conspiracy theory. If you remember, I had a conspiracy theory that said there's no such thing as bad PR. And so if you're going to go through a season of getting bad headlines, you might as well just go ahead and throw out all the trash, right? While you're at it. Yeah, you might as well just kind of get it all done and go through this season of pain and be done with it, right? And so in the latest season of pain for the Southern Baptist Committee, they have decided to disfellowship a church for affirming homosexuality at all levels in their church. So you can get married, you can be a leader, you can be a pastor. They affirm it. And so the SBC did their thing and did whatever they do to vote. And they said, yeah, you can. I think a friend of mine once called it the left-footed fellowship. Yeah, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. You know?
Yeah, and like in all honesty, it's like seeing a thing like this from a Southern Baptist church is, I'm not that this affiliation doesn't surprise me at all, but that there is a Southern Baptist church that was that affirming to be disfellowshipped. When like a few weeks ago, right, like we're reading about the Southern Baptist Conference having a problem with Rick Warren's church for thinking women can be preachers,
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm not sure whether to be like annoyed or encouraged by this particular
Yeah,
headline.
like law of large numbers, right? When you have a denomination this big, it's inevitable that there's going to be a church somewhere in the United States that's going to push back a little bit, right?
Yeah, monkeys and typewriters.
Yep.
Eventually,
So
you get there.
yep. So that's just where they're at, and it's probably overall a healthy thing for everybody that this church that doesn't fit into the denomination anyway, moves out. Just unfortunate and a little bit weird that the SBC is just kind of giving everybody the boot all at one time.
Yeah, well, I'm honestly with like in light of some of their press in this past year, like that we're not seeing churches disaffiliating themselves from the SBC.
True enough. Yeah.
But
Yep. Like that's what's happening over at the UMC. Yeah.
hmm
Yep. I agree.
what can you
But
do?
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see what happens in like 5 years when they're quote unquote back to normal.
hmm
That'll be interesting. All right. Real persecution watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me guess, Nigeria?
Not this time, I don't think.
Oh, weird.
Cameroon.
Hmm.
If I could. Cameroon. Gunman kidnaps 5 priests, nun, and churchgoers after setting fire to a church.
Wow, that's harsh. Like,
Yep.
I mean, at least it's obviously Catholic with priests and nuns, so I can be sure
Yeah.
that because I have a classmate from Cameroon, so it's nice to know that he wasn't the one caught up in this. That'd be sad,
Yeah.
or be more sad personally, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So I think we just kind of need to keep reminding ourselves that we are fortunate enough to live in a country where the state cannot persecute us for what we believe about religion and spirituality and God. And that's not the same everywhere in the world. There are real people all around the globe who fear for their lives every day simply for proclaiming Christ as Lord. And so that persecution word, we need to use carefully. And we need to use it with a bit of what? What's the word we need to use it with?
I'd say judgment.
Judgment? So yeah, discernment.
Discern. There we go.
So there we go. Discernment. Yeah, and this I started this real persecution watch as a way of kind of putting American Christians in their place, but this has really put a weight on my heart to finally have my eyes opened about like what's really going on in the world,
hmm
So yeah, crazy. You know what else goes?
It is.
Yeah, you know what else is going on in the world?
Well, no, I really don't. I haven't been watching the news much lately.
Yeah, you don't need to. There's nothing but politics on the news, right? We're
Pretty
midterms.
much.
There's nothing to watch except politicians like trying to come up with new and awful ways to beat each other up in the press.
Yeah, and new and stupider ways of wasting money on mailings.
Exactly. Yes. Tell me about it.
Have you gotten these mailings that like try to pretend like they're newspapers?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh.
I don't remember an election year ever where I've gotten as many spam robocalls from politicians as I have this year.
I know it's getting bad.
It's getting bad. But
Like,
you know what
should
never gets
Christians vote? Well, if it shuts these
Ugh.
people up, sure.
Yeah, for the love of God. Will somebody please get dark money out of politics once and for all? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Money is speech. Money is not speech. Money is money and speech is speech.
But that's a tirade for another time.
That's a tirade for another time. But I'm not going to tirade about Rob Bell.
Well, because Rob's speech is his speech.
It is. And he's not hateful and he's not mean and he's not trying to do awful things to his opponents on the political other side.
No, and he's not like slathering pigs in grease and chasing them around like a weirdo.
True enough. And he's not flying people off, immigrants from Texas to Maryland.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm really afraid that somebody's going to actually post a video of Rob Bell chasing a greased pig now.
that would be funny. Although, people,
I'll accept the correction.
right? The power of Photoshop is at both a wonderful and nightmarish thing, right?
Yeah. So we're going to get sued, aren't we?
One of these days. I don't think we're big enough yet, but one of these days. But Rob Bell, if you're out there, we're big fans. I'm a big fan at least. And I would love for you to come on the show sometime and impart some wisdom our way. Maybe tell us a little bit of your story and what's going on in your life now.
Yeah. I'll accept that. And maybe, chest just share with us the awesomeness that is not being pissed off all the time.
All right. All right. YouTube comments. Hey, so Sarah Lockridge, who is one of our usual contributors, she contributes a lot. She took exception to you, Mark.
Not surprised.
Yep. We were talking about giving, and you made a little jab that everybody always makes, gross not net when you tithe. And and she said, gross not net. Is he kidding? and I responded back, but I wanted to give you a chance to say your piece.
Yeah, my piece is simple. You know, it's like we talk about tithing as if it has to be this very specific image of something, right? Like it's that you give 10% of whatever you earn as your tithe. And there are so many pastors out there that want to make sure to like say that it's off of your gross, not off of your net.
Yeah.
Of course, what you can afford is what you can afford.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was just kind of jabbing those people. It's like, as a pastor, you need to recognize, like, if somebody can't afford it, they can't afford it. And, you know, it's kind of absurd to say, like, well, if you're faithful, God will make it work. It's like, well, that's right to an extent, but it's wrong to an extent, you know? Yeah. And so it's like, we need to take a more balanced view of it. And that's kind of why I made that jab, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just to like say like pastors need to be responsible from the pulpit when talking about tithing, which they don't talk enough about it apparently from that one episode. But yeah, it's just, yeah, that whole gross not net is just, it's, I've heard it so many times and it's always from these pastors that don't have any right to talk about what people are giving to their church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just say this. Mark chapter 12. Jesus is teeing off on the temple. He's not a happy man at this point, right? He's got all sorts of not nice things to say. And then he stops and he looks at this woman and he says, look at this woman who's putting her last 2 pennies into the offering. And his point was not to comment on the faithfulness of the woman. He was indicting the church at that moment, saying, what the heck is this crap show that you think it's okay to build your church on the suffering of your people? And then he goes back to, you know, to not being happy with the temple, right? And so most churches get that part of the Bible very, very wrong, and it drives me nuts. And we need to correct it. We need to make a conscious effort to remember that people who don't have a lot can't give a lot. And people who have much shouldn't complain about what they do give. It's whatever you give is up to you. Just don't complain about it, you know?
Yeah. And the problem is, I think bigger than anything else, is that those who can't afford to give are more generous, generally speaking, than those who can afford.
Right.
And that's the real tragedy to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's a super philosophical thing. And there's somebody who's already typing away, well, Mark, how can you know how much people are giving? How can you know? It's like, well, you and I are not new at this. Like we've been like traversing these waters for many, many years. And so there tends to be, in my mind, there's 3 categories of people. There are the people who come in and give what they can. There are the people who give more than they should out of some sort of wrong thinking. And then there are people like the people at the top who have enough financial wealth that they write the big checks and they make all the big decisions, you know? And somehow, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but somehow we stop serving the people at the bottom in order to make happy the people at the top.
Yeah.
And we've inverted what Jesus is trying to teach us, you know, about giving, about charity, about right living. We invert it all in the name of money. So anyway, I hope that's a better answer.
Yeah, we do what we can.
Absolutely. So let's get this train back on the tracks. I don't think there's anything to do but for you to march us out of here.
I mean, did you harass people about, you know, how they can reach out to us and bother us?
Wow. Thanks for that.
See?
Thanks for getting, okay. So listen up.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. This is the internet and you don't just get to consume. You need to give back in the form of your clicks. Okay. There's a thumbs up. there's a thumbs down, there's subscriptions, there's notifications, there's comments, there's everything in the world you can do. If you listen to us in your podcast player, give us a rating and give us a review. If you're on Reddit, give us that, what do they call that? Upvote. Give us the upvote thing in our subreddit. So wherever you are on the internet, you will find Church is Lame, and give us a little bit of that algorithm love, and we'd really appreciate it. And if you want to get a hold of us and you have something that you really want to get on your radar, if you want to get something on our radar, shoot us an email, churcheslamepodcast@gmail.com.
And we look forward to hearing from you, especially for any longer form opinions or thoughts. Email is the best way to share those with us. And with that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.